In the world of video compositing, there are two different types of compositors: the layers-based compositors and the node-based compositors. These are their stories.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another DaVinci Resolve tutorial. So what we're going to do today is, it's not really so much a tutorial as it is an overview of how nodes work and how they are different from a layer-based compositing system. So the thing that catches people by surprise or really is a roadblock to them moving over to DaVinci is the node-based compositing in Fusion. Now, the node-based compositing in Fusion is similar to the industry standard of Nuke, which is what's used in like big cinema productions. And, well, what do we mean when we say a node-based compositor? Well, let's just open up our Fusion tab here. This is a node. It has an input, it has an output, and it serves a purpose. In other compositors, you don't really have nodes, you have layers. It's kind of more like scrapbooking, where you put things on top of things, and you just put more sheets of paper on top of sheets of paper. Here, it's more like a factory that has a bunch of conveyor belts. Now, the media out is basically the last node in your tree. It's the one that's going to send everything off to be delivered to the edit page. So right now, there's nothing being delivered to the edit page. We can see that because down here it says, no frame available for media out 1. So what we need is we need to supply it something to output. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to add just a background node. Now, the background node has one input and one output. And its job is to generate a color. That's it, a background color. Right now, it's black. We could put it red. And if I bring it into the viewer, whoops, would help if I actually chose it. There you go. It's now generating a red plane. Its job is to generate that. And then what happens to it? Well, we want to send it out to the media, the edit bin. So we're going to grab this and bring that conveyor belt out to the input of the media out, the shipping department. And there we are. So now this red plane is being brought down this conveyor belt and then sent to the shipping department, and it's being shipped out to the edit tab. And so that's a very, very basic node tree. It's got two nodes, a media and an out. That's it. Let's take a look at a couple of other nodes. There's a lot of nodes in DaVinci Resolve Fusion. There's tons and tons. I don't even know all of them by heart yet either. There's some, like, for example, ACES Transform is about color science. Cube 3D is for 3D scenes. Let's grab another one. Media out we just looked at. Media in is for grabbing things from your timeline. What else we have? Magic Mask is for cutting things out. There's tons and tons and tons of nodes. And that can look a bit overwhelming. But to start off, there's only a couple of nodes. If you hit Shift and Space, there's only really a couple of nodes in here that you might use as a beginner. Any of the masking nodes, the keying nodes, maybe the tracking nodes. Those are the ones that you might use that are not right up here, front and center in the interface. The rest, as you start learning, a lot can be done with just this. I also like playing with these over here. So let's explain it. So here we've got our background node. It's got an input. This input is actually a mask, and I'll go over masks later. And an output, like I said, over here. And then it's got, under the inspector, you've got a bunch of things that you can change. This is a fast noise. What it does is it creates basically a cloud-like texture that you can play around with. And it's most often used to either create fake fog or clouds or to be used as kind of a random texture to cut out or mask out certain effects or media. And it has an in and an out, and it's got two ins. What are they? Brightness map and a detail map. Interesting. Next, we've got our text node. Good old text node. It just generates text. That's its job. It's got a mask input and it's got just an output. The paint node is a bit different. You can bring something in. You see this yellow input. And then you use this to do paint outs, to do clone painting like you would in Photoshop, or to create lines. That one's a bit more complex. These are to adjust the image. So we've got like a color corrector. We've got a curves tool. If you've used the curves in any picture editing program, you'll know what this is. We've got a brightness and contrast node, and we've got a blur node. Then over here, we've got the trusty old merge, which basically it has a job of taking something and then putting something on top of it. That's the only thing it does. It can move things around a little bit as well, but its main job is to take one thing and put it on top of another thing. The next is the multi-merge. It can take a bunch of things and put them on top of a thing. Channel Boolean, which is, we'll skip over this one for now. Then we've got the matte control, which allows you to control the opacity. Not the opacity, the alpha mask. And then the good old transform node. Then these are shapes. So this is a rectangle, an ellipse, a polygon, which you can create a shape from, and a B-spline, which is kind of like a polygon, but it makes it more round, a softer shape, and the multi-poly, which is brand new, and I've got no idea because I haven't used it yet. I think it came in with like 19, and I just haven't had a chance. I think you can just do a bunch of polys all in one node, so you don't have 10,000 polys, connected to each other. These are the main nodes you're going to use for the majority of what you're going to do, at least in the beginning. Then, like I said, there's a couple of extra nodes that you might want to take a look at. If you've got some green screen, you'll be using probably a chroma keyer or a delta. I like using the delta for green screen. Luma keyer basically doesn't key out based on the color, but rather on the luminance, which can be very useful. Another tool that you might end up using is the trackers. You've got a camera tracker, which allows you to kind of get a feel for what if your video was not 2D but 3D. So it tries to figure out how things are moving in a scene. Planar tracker is good for tracking shapes based on a plane of your scene. Surface tracker is only studio. It basically allows you to track deformable shapes. So like, let's say you want to put a logo on a t-shirt. It'll kind of figure out how the t-shirt has bunched up and moved. It's pretty good for shirts, bags, blankets, things like that. And ye old tracker, which is basically a point tracker. You put a point, it tracks it. You can put multiple points to track and try to figure out how things are rotating and scaling up and down. So those are some of the ones that you might go and dig into at the beginning, but you don't need to know all like 10,000. I'm exaggerating at 10,000, but you don't need to know all of the nodes that are currently in this. Start with the ones I just mentioned, the ones up here, and once you've gotten comfortable with those, once you understand how to make your conveyor belts, then you'll be able to start taking a look at the more advanced nodes. And what's the difference between this and layers? Well, with layers, like I said, it's more like scrapbooking. It's like you're taking those transparent sheets, we call them des acétates in French, And you get those transparent sheets, and you're putting things on those sheets, and then you're putting those sheets on top of other sheets. And that's great. That can work really well. The problem is when your composites start getting really complicated, you'll want to grab a bunch of those sheets and kind of fuse them together, and then use that fuse to put it on top of other sheets. And those are called pre-comps. And the problem with those is that eventually you get pre-comps within pre-comps within pre-comps, and you don't know where your changes have been. With a node tree, you can see the entire factory. You can follow the conveyor belts and understand what is happening. That's one of the major powers with nodes. So let's take a look. We're going to build a very simple node tree. We're going to start off with what we've got here. We've got a red background going out. We already have a very simple node tree. What I'm going to do is we're going to add some text. Excellent. So I'm going to grab some text. And think of each node as a department or a machine within your factory. The text node, its job is to write text. So you go into your copywriters, your text node, and said, give me some text. And it says, this is a title. Is that what you wanted? Yes? Excellent. I've done my job. That's it. Who do I give this to? Well, I want to put it on top of my background. Okay, well, the text node doesn't put things on top of other things. You need to talk to the merge node for that, because the merge node, its job is literally only to put things on top of other things. So we're going to put the merge node right in here, make sure it's connected, and you'll notice that it put the background on the yellow. The yellow is the thing that it's going to put things onto. Its job is really to grab whatever you bring into the green and put it on top of that. That's its job. It doesn't really, it does put it on top of the background, but it doesn't really care so much about the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this and we're going to put it into the green node. Because right now, the video is passing down, or rather the background is passing down, and the merge node's doing nothing. It's just scrolling on its phone, waiting for you to give it something, because the bin of things that it's supposed to put is empty, because we haven't told it what to put on. So it's doing nothing right now. So if I grab this text and I slap it on here, it's like, oh, you want me to put text on top of this red background? Not a problem. I'll do that. Excellent. And now our background comes down. The merge department grabs the text and puts it on top, and then they ship it down to the shipping department, the media out, and it gets shipped out to the edit node, edit tab. And there we are. We have a very basic tree. Okay, so let's say the foreman comes in and says, okay, well, now we need a subtitle underneath that. Okay, well, I guess we're going to ask another department to create some text, and we're going to call this is a subtitle. That's what you wanted? Excellent. And what do you want to do? Oh, you want to put it on top of the background? Excellent. We're going to send that to another merge node. And his job, oops, that's a transform, not a merge. And his job is going to be to put that text on top. So let's take a look. We've got a background coming in. This merge is putting text on and then sending the background with the merge down to the next node. The next node is grabbing the combined, the merged background and text and putting its text on. The problem is it's putting it exactly in the same place. Now, you could ask the merge node to move it down like this. Or you could come to the text and go to the layout and say, yeah, make sure that your text is a bit lower. But the text node is okay, well, why? How much lower? Because when you take a look at this, it doesn't know that there's more text above, right? You have to look further down the machine and tell it, bring it down a little bit. And you can do that. It can work. The problem is when you look at this, when you take a look at this, you're looking, okay, I've got a background node. We've got some text merging on top of it, and then it's going off and having some other text merged on it. But why is this text lower? Who moved it? Was it the merge or was it the text? So now you got to go and take a look. No, the merge didn't move. Okay, it's the text. So instead of doing it here, and like I said, you can do it here, especially if it's a smaller thing or if you're the only one working on it, or if it's something that is a one-off and you're not going to come back into it like in 6 months. You can move it here, but there's a node whose sole job it is to move things. Well, move them, resize them, rotate them, flip them, a couple things. And that is the transform node. Our good friend, the transform node. So I'm going to put that in here. And now the transform node's here. And I'm going to tell the transform, the text is going to come here and is going to say, here's some text. And the transform node like goes, okay, well, I need to move that down. And then it passes that off to the merge node, who puts all of this on and then brings it down. And now when you look at this, you're like, okay, I've got a background, I'm adding text on top of it, and I'm adding transform text. Okay, so the transform moved it down. Excellent. Let me just resize the text here to make it a little bit different. Text. I'm going to size it down. Excellent. And then that's being sent down to shipping, and shipping sends it off to the client, which just happens to be the edit tab. Pretty cool. But now let's say that the foreman says, no, the title can't be in the middle. It has to be in the lower right corner. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to grab my transform and move this over here. And then I'm going to grab this text. Oh, I guess I need to give it a transform. And I'm going to bring it over here. Where was it positioned? Was it like this? Was it like that? How was it supposed to be? Now you're moving two things, when really you're trying to move the title. So instead of doing like this, what we can do is we can take, we're going to get rid of this merge. Oops, just a merge, not everything else. We're going to take this text and we're going to slap it on top of the other text. So now what I'm merging is I'm merging this text. I've moved it down and I've merged it on top of this text like this. So if I want to, I can now add a transform here. I can add a transform here and bring it into the corner like this. And now I'm only moving one thing. Interesting, right? Now, what if the foreman says, well, we also need a black semi-transparent background on this? Okay, let's move it a bit. All right, well, what I can do is I can bring in a background and then take my two texts that are merged together and bring it on top of that background. Maybe if I did it correctly. There you go. And then merge that into my transform. Now, when I move this, I move the background along with the text. So all the effects go downstream, just like it would with a conveyor belt or a factory. I've got a background going downstream, and then I've got these texts. You know, this text going downstream being transformed and being added on top of this text that was going to this as well. And that's going on top of a background. And all of this is being moved. Let's say now I like it where it is, but the subtitle, I need it arranged a bit to the right. Arranged to the right of the title. Okay, well, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to arrange that, and I'm just going to move it like this. Oh, maybe a little bit more. Dunk. Oh, I moved it in the wrong spot. There you go. And I'm going to grab this and move it here. And that's all connected. Now, the foreman says, well, that's great. You put a black background and you put the text on top of it and then you moved it in the corner. That's great. But it's too big. Like, I just want it around the text. what could we do? Well, we've got these blue inputs, and their job is to mask whatever they're connected to. And when I say mask, I don't mean make it disappear. It's basically telling it, do your job, but only here. So let's take a rectangle. And the rectangle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it, let's say here. Let's say I put it in this text. Well, and then I move it around. The text only appears inside that box. So this box is saying, you text, do your job, but only within these confines. I'm going to do that with a circle now, or an ellipse. Do your job only within these confines. And it's not only to make things appear or disappear, because, as I said, it's do your job in that area. So if I grab this ellipse and put it into the transform, it's only moving the pixels within that circle. Outside that circle, all the pixels stayed exactly where they were originally before the transform. We only told the transform, move everything over that was inside here. So it's not just cutting things out, it's telling things where they can do their job. For example, with a merge. Only merge the stuff coming into the green inside that portion. So for example, if I grab this and brought it here, it won't cut out the red background. It will only allow what's been, the parts of this that are inside this circle. Isn't that interesting? But for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, not an ellipse, I'm going to grab a rectangle, and I'm just going to cut out the background. So I'm going to say draw background, but only within this box. And I'm going to make the box a little bit thinner. I'm going to move its center right about here. I'm going to reduce the height. Oh, maybe bring it back up a bit. There you go. And I'm going to round its corners a bit. And now I've got a nice, let's move that box a little bit again. Just, there you go. Perfect. We've got a box that's telling that background that's 1920 by 1080 to just draw here. And then we throw some text on top of it, and then we move it in the corner, and then we add it on top of the red background, and then we ship it out. And I'm going to take the alpha, which is the opacity of that black, and just bring it down a bit so we can see underneath. Excellent. And now if we go back to our edit tab, that is what we have. And that's the power of nodes. If we go back here and take a look at this, you can clearly see and understand what is going on. Background, we're adding stuff on it. What are we adding? Stuff that's been transformed. And how's it been transformed? Oh, okay, it's been moved. What are we moving? We're moving this. We're moving this title. Okay, this title is made up of a text that has more text added to it, and that other text has been moved or transformed or whatever. Let's take a look. It's only been moved. Excellent. And then it's been added on a black background that's been cut out. Black background that's been cut out. It's super easy to tell what was done and how, and to then go back and make modifications to it. The power of nodes. So that's the first part. So now let's say that I decide, well, I want to add a picture, like a video, underneath my title. I didn't really want a red background. That was just a placeholder. Okay, well, I'm going to come up to my media pool, and I'm going to find some media. Now, I've got a bunch of media in here because this is a project that I just keep throwing things in. We're going to grab this video clip from cover. But what do I want to do with this? Well, I want to add it to my background. I want to add it to my scene. Okay, well, if I put it down here, what would happen? If I put it here, well, I've got a background. I'm merging some text and all that stuff onto it. And then I'm sending that to the next node. And then the next node is adding the video on top of it. And what does that give us? Just a video. Because the video is on top of everything else. So you could consider this basically layers. And I'm using air quotes here. Because we're layering all of this on top of the background. And then we're layering the video on top of the background, on top of the background with the title. The thing is that obviously doesn't work because now we're covering everything. So if I come back down here and put this merge right here, and then connect this to it, connect this to it. Now we've got a red background. We're covering it with a video, and then we're adding on top of that our title. Then we're sending that off to shipping. Back to the Edit tab. And there we are. Look at that. And we've done all of this using only the basic nodes that are up here. We haven't done anything crazy yet. The other advantage of nodes is that elements within a node tree can be piped into different areas. They can be reused. I'm going to go to another thing I did. So I'll be right back. So this is a node tray built for another tutorial on how to make this cool little text effect here. And you're looking at this and you're going, oh my God, what is this? Look at that complicated tree. Well, it's not that complicated. And it's easy to follow because, as I said, it's a factory. It's basically conveyor belts going to different machines. You take a look at this, and the first thing you want to do is find your media out, and then just follow the yellow lines out. We've got a media out. It's got a yellow line going to a brightness contrast, going to a merge, another yellow to merge, background. So this is the start of our machine. Excellent. So we've got a black background, and we're adding an image on top of it. Excellent. Why didn't we just use the image? Because the image is 2560 by 1440, and I want my composite to be 1920 by 1080. And if I use that, it would set the resolution of the composite to that resolution, which can cause some issues. So I'm just using this background to set the size of the composite. Excellent. Okay, so I'm adding a photo. What am I adding on top of it? Okay, well, I'm adding something that's cut out. We'll take a look at the cutout in a minute. What am I adding? I'm adding something that's glowing. I'm adding a merge that's glowing, and that merge is this text and that text. Okay, so I'm adding those two texts together. I'm making them glow, and then I'm merging them on top of the image. And then on top of that, I'm masking it out. So what is this mask? Okay, it's a series of dots. It's just on a blank background. Okay, I'm transforming, and it's set to wrap. Well, what does that do? Oh, look at that. It took this one dot and then wrapped it around. So it's added one here, added one there, added one here. Okay, wrap. What does duplicate do? Nothing? Mirror? Oh, mirror could have worked as well. But wrap. So this transform is wrapping it to fill in the entire canvas. Okay. And then we've got a background. What does that background do? Okay, so it's just a solid square it's a white square that's being cut out by a pattern. Interesting. And right now, it's got a switch node, which is a brand new node that was added in with 19.1. The switch node is an interesting one. I really like it. It's a chameleon. it becomes whatever is plugged into it and selected. So right now, you'll notice I've got like a bright white line and a big white triangle input. That's because the source is set to square, and square is that input 0. If I choose here halftone, it changes it to circles, and triangles changes it to a triangle. And it does that because I've inputted a rectangle in here, and in this one, in say input 1, I've inputted an ellipse with another ellipse with another ellipse with another ellipse with another ellipse, so that when you mirror them, it creates a circle here, and then another circle there, another circle there, and then it creates a pattern of circles that are shifted a little bit. I forget the term I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. And in this one, I just made a triangle. So I can change what this becomes by choosing from the source here. That cuts out that shape into the background. It transforms it, making a huge selection of, making a huge grid of it, and really reducing its size, 0.003. This is what it would normally look like. And then I shrank it down to 0.003 to make the dots tiny. I said 0.003. And then it's just adding that to a blank background. And then it's using that to cut out the text that's glowing. And it creates this nice little pattern. Interesting. Okay. It puts that pattern on top of the image, and then it sends it down, and then we put something else on top of it. Something that's been color corrected. Okay. What does that do? Okay. So it recolors whatever is coming into it. Interesting. And then there's a matte control. Well, that matte control, what does it do? Okay, I don't know what it does. What does it do? Okay, well, if I turn it off, what happens? Oh, it's eating into the edges, only leaving kind of a core. Interesting. So what it's doing is it's grabbing the edges of that and eating them away, leaving us just with a bit of a core to it. And what does that do for us? I'm just going to turn off this merge. Oh, it's leaving us with like a hard, like a brighter core to it, like as if there was a filament or something. Interesting, right? And then this craziness happens. The merge of the text gets sent to the glow and to the matte control. So instead of having to copy this text and bring it into the matte control, I could send the text both to the glow and to the matte control. And even here, the glow, you can see it's going to a brightness contrast, because apparently I'm making this glow as well. Let's take a look at it. And if I disconnect this, it's making everything glow, while here I'm just telling it, yeah, no, I'm not making glow, I'm using the glow, which is just the glowing outlines as well as on top of the letters. I'm using that to restrict where the brightness is happening. Okay. And then I'm sending that out to the media out. It looks complicated. It looks very complicated, but it's not. You can follow it. And then when you hit a node that you don't know, you can just look it up. There's plenty of documentation on the Blackmagic Design website. And this is the beauty of it. We can reuse things pretty much anywhere we want. We can clearly follow the train of thought, the logic behind the conveyor belts, but behind the node tree. And this is what makes nodes so powerful. This is why I prefer doing compositing in a node-based environment, because you can take a look at things and it makes sense. You can reuse things without having to copy them and pre-compose them, and you can still do something similar to pre-comping. And if things get a bit too complicated, you can also just like grab elements and grouped them together and collapsed them. But it's still all technically available there very easily. There's a couple of reasons you might want to pre-comp within Fusion. Some effects are very, very intensive, and you might want to, once they're done, once that part of the machine is completed, you won't be playing around with it much, you can detach it and then export out its own, just that part of the result out as its own video file or as a series of PNGs, and then bring that in, which will make things run much smoother. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about things like magic mask or depth maps. Those two nodes are very, very intensive. So if you've got like a big complicated tree, sometimes you'll use a saver node to save out the output of the magic mask or something like that. But typically, and the nice thing too is with the node tree, you can leave it unattached. And as long as it's not attached, it doesn't run. So that way, if you did a saver and loader and you realize, oh no, I do need to make a change, you can just reattach or make the change to your node tree and then re-export and then re-import it in. But that's going to be for another tutorial. I'm hoping that this video will have made this make more sense for people. We're going to cover one or two more things before we're done. I'm going to go back to my other tutorial here, my other Fusion clip, and I'll be right back. And we're back. Let's see. If I go back to my Fusion page. So you're taking a look at these and you're like, oh, well, it's all well and nice, but how do I know what to connect to what? Well, like I said, you can take a look at the actual nodes. I'm going to grab let's grab a node here. Let's grab a color corrector. Color corrector has got a crazy amount of nodes. I'm just going to grab a text, and I'm going to take the output of the text. Here, I'm just going to put some text in so we can see what's happening. This is a test. Okay, I'm going to grab the output of this, but I'm going to right-click and drag. And when I let go, it's going to give me a name for each one of those inputs. So it's got an input, which is the yellow. It's got a match reference, which would be probably this white one, and then an effect mask. I don't know what the green was for. That's interesting. Effect mask. So I'm going to bring this into the input. Excellent. Bring that over here. And then if I bring my color corrector, I'm going to do some red. Color corrector doesn't work very well on white, so we're just going to change it to another color. Let's say, yeah, let's do that. So I've got it on red, I think, and now as I move around, it changes color, right? Tint mode, better, full. And then we can change saturation, we can change hue, we can change contrast, and all those wonderful things. But now we've got all of these. What are these? Well, if I hover over this, that's the match mask. No clue. Never used it. Match reference. Interesting. And the effect mask, which is do your job only where I told you to. So if I grab this and put this here, it will only color correct within that ellipse. So now if I grab soft edge, there we go. It will only do its color correcting there. Now, when you don't know what these two things mean, well, you can just look it up in the documentation, really. That's basically, there's just too many of them to be able to cover in a single video. So when you're encountering something and you're not quite sure what it does, take some time and look it up. Or I'll do a video or request a video about it and we'll take a look at it. The thing that you have to remember is that you don't need to know all the nodes to be able to do some very good work in DaVinci. Don't be terrified of like going in here and going like, what is all this? I just showed you. It's just things going into other things and being added on top of other things. And that's it. It's a conveyor belt. And as long as you keep that in mind and understand how the nodes interact, like, for example, like I said, with the masks, like as long as you understand the basics of it, you'll be fine. You'll be able to create some amazing things. Like here, I just used a text to cut out the video that we were bringing in here, because the merge puts this on top of that. Well, I told it put this on top of that only where the text is. So I could come here and put some text there, give it a transform. Right, I've got red text, and that red text I'm going to put over here. But I could also then grab that text and drive it into here. Okay, maybe I shouldn't put it red. I'll put it, let's say, gray, like this. So now I've told the text to be added on top, moved it down a bit, but I also told it, hey, only allow the video to be where where this text is. Here, let's do it like this. So as long as you keep that in mind, that you have to follow a flow and that each input has a specific task, you'll be fine. It's not that complicated. I hope you guys got something out of this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.